I'm Bethany Doughty, and I have been in the industry just over a year now. Well, full-time in the industry, just over a year. I was studying at Wimbledon College of Art before that, set design for screen, and now I'm trying to make it in the art department.
Hi, I'm Lydia Moss. I've been working in the industry a year now, and I just graduated from Wimbledon College of Art in 2019. I've been working in the art department, and hopefully we'll do future work on that.
Well, initially, I actually wanted to go and do architecture. I have, since I was young, been obsessed with architecture and nature, to be fair. So I was very just like, oh, I'm going to do architecture. Yeah, that's just the thing to do. Because you never really think about film as an option. It's not really, oh, I'm going to go into film and I'm going to design the sets. You never really think of that. You're just like, oh, actors. And then I think I started to actually look into how films were made. And I had a sister who was also in the industry, and it made me start to realize there are so many more jobs within the industry. And I looked into it and was like, oh my gosh, yeah, people have to design that, and you're able to design a world. And rather than just architecture where you're designing just a building or an extension, you can design a world, and it could be anything. And then I basically, once that clicked in my head, I was like, right, I'm going to go and study set design and figure out how I can get into the art department, be a production designer, you know.
I originally wanted to go into theatre design, as I was brought up in musical theatre, music, dance performance especially. And then I started looking at behind the scene work, because I always worked as that throughout school, and then realised the size of theatre and the amount of puppetry you have to do in that, whereas in film it is a lot more set rules for it. And I preferred the fact that you could do like time period more with it, instead of having one space that you have to design. You could design all the spaces. So I got into film by looking at that, and then I got more into period drama, especially as that's the most interesting film genre to me. My first job after leaving Wimbledon was on Ted Lasso, a TV series, of which I was on that for 5 months. And the thing I least expected was the amount of times you would redo something for a very short space of time. For example, you might have put a lot of effort into recreating signage to cover for an entire scene, discussed all of it with construction, started building it, and then they cut that scene or changed the location. So a lot of things that you've put maybe a day or two's work in suddenly gets cut. So the amount of stuff you actually end up doing is not very economical way of working. That's what was one of my least expected things.
So my first job after graduating, my first proper job, was as the art department assistant on a Sky TV show called Save Me 2. And one thing I think I never fully expected is how on your toes you will be on the job. So I would be running across London, and then I'd get to a location and all of a sudden have to completely make up a new graphic. And luckily I had my laptop and could ring up a graphics place near me and be able to quickly make that graphic for that shot. So I think it's more, I just didn't expect how small things will pop up and how spread the work is, that even me, an assistant, will have that responsibility of being able to make sure I get that make that graphic and get it in time in the set. And I think, yeah, that's what I never expected. One of the first times I saw my contribution to work was when I finally saw my name on the credit, and that was the first time, was from the show that I worked on straight after graduating, Save Me, is that I saw it. And I think when being able to see my name for the first time, I was like, oh, I actually did work on that and I contributed, rather than it just being work experience and all that, and you're running around like a headless chicken. You committed your 5 months of your life to that, and it paid off, and it's actually on your screen, and it's just a really cool moment to actually be like, yeah, I did that.
So the first time I saw my work on screen was actually doing a work placement on Downton Abbey film, and I was very excited because I'd spent all week making these handmade held flags, and then I saw the entire cast using them, and that was when you were like, that world that you created inside an office was part of a major film that you can be like, well, I made that, and it's just really surreal. I feel most in my element when I am working on period dramas and larger sets that involve interior housing, as it has like more detailed architecture moldings and that kind of job, as that is where I'm really interested and focus on. So I want to make the best work when I end up focusing on that style.
I am most in my element, I guess you would say, is when I'm working on something based off real life, so something based off a true story. I'm not so bothered whether it's period or modern day, but I like it when it is based off something real, because then there's a lot of research and history behind it that you've actually got to make it accurate, rather than just being like, oh, I'm just going to make this up and this is how I think it is. It's like, no, you've actually got to look into it to make it accurate.
For me, getting over collaboration was more, you kind of think what would be best for the film to do and how to go about it, not necessarily just what you want. It might be a great idea on its own, so you have to almost put into action both ideas and then discuss the pros and cons upon which one might come out better, for create almost better shots for the film, and thinking ahead instead of just at the design stage.
I would say with it, you've always got to be open to everyone else's ideas and take into account the reason why they're saying it and see whether it's a valid idea, rather than just knocking it down straight away. But my experience of being in the actual industry, I'm not yet in a position where you can't be like, oh, I've got this idea, I think it's better, because you're just an assistant. But when you're dealing with people who have differing ideas within the art department, it can get very tricky, but you've always just got to be open to their ideas and understand it. And then even if they're not happy with what the main idea that you're going with, you've kind of just got to explain to them why we're having to go with the other idea, and be like, yours is great, but we're going with this one. I guess one you could say is the long hours. But I think when you're actually working, you forget about the long hours and enjoy it. I think the one thing I struggled with was I was working on quite a small TV show, and even though it was great having a lot of responsibility, a lot of the time I was actually on my own. And I think when you're starting out and you're on your own, I struggled a lot in knowing in myself whether I was doing the right work, purely because it was my first job and I wasn't too sure. So what I guess I struggled the most with is maybe just working on my own, even though I'm totally fine and can produce the work on my own. I think it's just I get bored on my own. So I kind of like a big group of art department and just working with people.
Inconsistent regulation of jobs and works. So for one day you may only be given one set task, and that's all you've got to complete. So no matter how fast you complete that task, that is it for the day. And the following day you're going to be given 10, because that's what they require for the shoot the day after that. Whereas if you'd have perhaps planned it yourself, you might have scheduled yourself 5 tasks one, 5 tasks the other, but you can't do that due to how demanding they want things, like so urgently. You can't level out your work no matter how much you try. And then if you are on a day that has 10 tasks, the lack of appreciation once you've got to lunchtime and already completed a whole day's work, they're then sometimes demanding tasks over and throughout lunch ready for filming in the afternoon, so that you don't get behind essentially with your work and with the filming schedule, as you never want to be the person they're waiting on, which it just tires you out. So by the end of that day you feel like you've achieved so much, but all they're bothered about is the thing you haven't done.
At the end of the day, you might not get that one task that they actually want done, but you might get all 9 other ones done. So sometimes you just got to be like, right, okay, I'll do all these 10 tasks, but which one is the one you need first? And they might say it's this one, but then halfway through the day they're like, actually scrap that whole one, we need this one, which you wouldn't have even done. So it is very much, you're very back and forth with it. So it's also a lot of fun. You do have fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah, standing on a football field till 3 a.m. in the morning, doing the last shots of the day.
You get to go places you've never thought you would ever do, or you make a new, like one day I was making a painting, the next day I was doing a location survey, the next day I was just kind of chilling in a cafe with my art director. It's like you've never got the same day twice.
Yeah, I know. I needed to learn to chill more. I was expecting it to be a lot more, right, okay, go. They want this today, I want that tomorrow, where some days it'd just be like, just pop out for lunch, let's go.
Maybe more in the beginning process rather than the later, because a lot of the art department, you can actually do a lot of the work on your own as long as you're constantly in contact. So I think a lot of it will be very much run like now on Zoom, and meetings will be done. But as soon as production is kind of starting up, I think a lot more will be a lot more studio based rather than location, going to a location and changing the location, because in a studio it can be it's more of a controlled environment rather than a location. So I think a lot more set is going to be actual set rather than location.
I think COVID-19 will affect the art department in the way that we've got to transition into things in a more logical way, as we can't cross-contaminate and like bring things back, go into, I think stuff like eating on set will become an issue. So, and that is all to do with the art department, as you do product placement and deal with the food and drink, so that will all have to be gone about a completely different way. But in regards to making and props and personal items will be kept at a much like higher risk level directly for that actor, and I reckon it will all just become just a more effective health and safety wise.
I wouldn't necessarily say there's a support for graduates or support for graduates unless you know somebody in the industry. However, I do believe they are getting a lot better with trying to get new people from the industry, whether you've got a degree or not, with screen skills, and they're trying to make it easier. But I believe it is quite a hard system to get into, and screen skills will take you through and give you a job on a really big feature or a big TV show, and you'll be able to be a trainee. But I think it is very hard to get on that scheme.
I think work experience in the industry will become a lot harder to get a hold of, as I reckon a lot more art departments will become more cautious with who they're bringing in and how many staff, whether they actually require all those members of staff to do the jobs. So unless you have them in a situation that is already taught and they've got a link in the industry, it's going to be hard just to get a simple work experience job, as it's going to be the constant question of, do you need all these people to get the job done? And I think it will be hard for graduates like myself, as we've kind of not fallen out of the loop at the moment without having a job either pending or to get back into it as an assistant without knowing large volumes of people that are working at the moment.
You need to be very good at learning new things, always open to doing whatever you can to help. You've just got to be good at problem solving, because it's never going to be a simple journey. You're always going to be like, right, this has gone wrong, so we need to fix it. You need to be fast on your feet and be like, right, how are we going to fix it? And just be willing to learn new things and just try it, you know?
To be very versatile, to be able to pick up and turn your hand to any job required, but also be responsible. If a mistake does go wrong, let yourself take the blame. Don't try and pass it off onto someone else if it is you, and sort it out instantly. And again, if you're working alongside someone and something has gone wrong for them and the mistakes happened on their half, help them sort it out, because as much as everyone likes to try to blame, the outcome will always need to happen. So the quicker you get it done as a team, the more valued you'll be, and you'll help the production move along, and that's what you want at the end of the day.
I think I would have told myself to relax. Everything will be all right. Because one annoying thing about this industry is you don't have a job 24/7. You constantly are looking for a job. And I would say relax and just keep looking for work, keep updating your portfolio, make it look good however you do that, and just keep emailing people, because work will come and it will be all right. Like you might have a long gaps, but people will get back to you eventually. And any experience, like any work experience you've got, try be your shining self, because if you show that you're really good, they're the people who are going to recommend you.
So advice I'd give to my graduating self is to talk to everyone that you can find on the job. So you'll be very shocked to how many common grounds that someone that might only be doing the job this time in production might already be a full-time qualified person in the art department, props department, so it might benefit you. So don't ever count anyone out and not giving them your time, and always be your politest, best self in any job role. And that way then give every job that's given to you the best attitude you can, obviously within reason of jurisdiction of what your job description is. So don't let people walk over you, but also don't say no, and give every job a shot, and try and try and try, like figure out at least 3 different solutions before asking someone else in the office to help you.